Well, good morning. My name is Zach Anstett. I am a 2011 alumni of Severna Park High School. I am currently a practicing attorney here in Raleigh, North Carolina. My primary uh, areas of practice are labor and employment law and business law, with a probably a 50-50 split on transactional and counseling matters. So working with employers, businesses on paid leave laws, discrimination counseling policies, harassment in the workplace. And then the other half of my practice focuses on uh, litigation. So what happens when they don't listen to my advice and somebody files a lawsuit or a charge in the EEOC or the DO, which is the Department of Labor, Department, the administrative agencies that require filings before filing an actual lawsuit. But that is way too boring for this conversation. Basically, I work with companies and employers and help them navigate the ever-changing landscape of the law. Uh, I went to undergrad at the University of Maryland. I got my bachelor's degree in English with what they called a pre-law emphasis, because I knew I wanted to go to law school, which was very writing and reading intensive, which was very helpful for law school. I then went to law school down in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was torn between Maryland law and a small school in Raleigh. And I decided on the small school in Raleigh, to my mother's disappointment, maybe, but I haven't looked back ever since. And that's really where I made my network down here in Raleigh. The educational requirements are: you need an undergrad, you need a law school degree. And then after that law school, after you get that JD, a Juris Doctorate, you need to pass the bar exam in order to practice. And so that is, you typically study for 3 to 4 months post-graduation of law school, take the bar exam. It's a 2-day exam, and then you have to pass the bar. And depending on what score you get, you can practice in different jurisdictions or different states, different areas, and then you jump into the workforce. Specifically for me, there are different what we call continuing legal education requirements, so CLEs. And basically, the law changes every now and then. The law looks a lot different than it did, say, in the 1800s. And so this is an ongoing responsibility on attorneys to stay abreast of the law, stay informed of those changes, specifically in your practice area. And so we talk about on-the-job training, what type of resources that you're provided. So I get a CLE budget every year. But what they'll tell you here is the best on-the-job training is you do it, or you watch somebody do it. And so I've been involved. It wouldn't be uncommon early in my practicing to go attend a client meeting with a partner. Let me take a step back. So in the legal world, right, there are different levels of legal professional. There are partners, associates, depending on how the firm is set up. You could have shareholders. These are all just words for manager, employee. Typically, the partners are more of the supervisors, and then the associates, which I am now what you'd call like a third-year associate. The associates are more of the grunt workers, the ones who go out and or stay in and draft the pleadings. Right, we're not going out anywhere. But every now and then, especially when you're newer in your career, you get to tag along with the supervisor, meet the client, and you'd get to participate in that one-on-one counseling. Like I said, my areas of practice primarily are business and employment law. And so counseling the employer, working with the employer, giving presentations. And so that's kind of the educational on-the-job training, the ongoing continuing legal education requirements that come up. Some of the skills that are most important for this field, I know that we talked a little bit about writing and reading, and I'm sure all the English teachers together just gave a big thumbs up of excitement. But really, and I apologize for my pre-calc teacher, Miss Fernandez, if she is still there. But thankfully I don't use much math in my profession, to everybody's benefit. It is incredibly uh, the, the amount of reading that I do per day. We're reading cases, we're reading statutes, and then more informally, you're reading emails, client letters. But you're also drafting these things. So we're not drafting the law, but we're drafting a motion to a judge discussing the law. We're drafting a client letter. We're drafting policies, handbooks. Currently, if you're watching this in the future, in 2020 there was a pandemic, COVID-19, and that changed the way that we do work. I was told before talking here that this would be something that was in person, and so the workforces have had to navigate and be flexible, in just like we're being flexible now. So work from home policies, mandatory vaccination policies in the workplace. How do you incentivize employees? Um, Things have changed, and that then goes into the continuing legal education and how we counsel employers in this, and what's important. But being able to read and critically think about the laws and the guidance that come down from the Department of Labor or the EEOC, and what they're suggesting or recommending that the employers do, and then being able to communicate that in a way to the employer that maybe someone who doesn't have a college degree or doesn't have an advanced degree, how can you explain this in a way that they understand, but how can you explain that in a way that also communicates what the law is and what they're required to do. I know we talked a little bit about the various jobs in this field. Big picture, you do have those partners and associates. That's the general trend. You can also have different what's called an of counsel, and those are just all attorneys. But if you're not going to law school, we have almost like a hybrid of a non-lawyer and a lawyer, which is called a paralegal. There's a paralegal certification. Paralegals, and I'm not saying this loud enough so my paralegal can hear it, but they do the real work in the office. I would not be able to function without the work of my paralegal and my legal assistant. We're truly a team in this. We call them pods. But in order to be a paralegal, there's a paralegal certification. She is primarily responsible for answering discovery, which it's a portion of document exchange, information exchange between the parties, which is in that litigation portion of my practice. She helps draft the letters. She organizes the file, helps prep me for trial. And then my legal assistant, who I also would not be able to function for. There's no required certification to be a legal assistant. But I do believe that our firm here, Cranfield Sumner in Raleigh, we look for some sort of definitely a high school education, and then definitely some college at a minimum. And that is a lot of letter drafting and other administrative duties, which are incredibly important. Everybody has a role here, and it's just where do you fit? And I fit in the attorney role. So I, what do I find most satisfying about this job? I really enjoy, and typically when you give an attorney an opportunity to speak, watch out, because it's not going to stop. But what do I find most satisfying? Yes, for one thing, I'm going to give you two. I really enjoy the advocacy. Even before I knew that I wanted to go to law school, I love the idea of discussion. I love the idea of advocating for ideas and beliefs. And that's something that I get to do. You can oftentimes have a client who doesn't understand or doesn't want to follow a mask in the workplace policy, but looking at either CDC guidance or EEOC guidance, Department of Labor guidance, you have to have these hard conversations about not just what the law is, but let's talk about what's best for your employees. And so we advocate oftentimes to our client, to the employer, but we also, shifting back over to the litigation aspect of my work, we advocate on behalf of our client and to the judge. And so I really enjoy the advocacy part of my work. And it's the typical law student or law school or lawyer answer. I really do enjoy helping people, working with employers, businesses. Um, we talk about what we have to do, we talk about what we should do, and we talk about what we shouldn't do. And I really enjoy those conversations about maybe we don't have to do this, but let's talk about why this is best for the company. Let's talk about why this is best for the employer. Let's talk about why this is best for the employees and how the employees are truly the company's greatest asset. And so having these conversations where I can help on a big scale, working with employers, hospitals, counseling services, coffee shops, either on a small scale or a larger scale. The feeling that I'm helping not just somebody understand the law, but also helping a workplace function well, so that way they can go and provide their service to you all, or to the community. I really enjoy the aspect of helping people as well. Um, One of the most challenging aspects of my job uh, is, I would say, how complex sometimes the subject matter can be. We think about, again, we're in 2021, but last year we had, for the first time ever, or first time in my lifetime, we had something called stimulus checks. We had something, extended unemployment from the federal government. We had, paid time off provided by the federal government, where the employer could receive a tax credit. The and so we're talking about the CARES Act, and then the American Rescue Plan under President Biden. Uh, the and these congressmen and women, very smart, but when they're pushed like they were to, uh, rush laws through and get they're going to be holes. And so, being able to navigate and try to understand and guess. And we didn't have guidance about vaccination in the workplace until probably a month or two after the vaccinations started rolling out. And when counseling employers who wanted to implement a mandatory vaccination policy, we had to have some hard conversations and some educated guesses about where we thought that the guidance was going to go based on flu vaccination and similar. So there's a lot of critical thinking, and complex areas in this area, especially in the kind of the COVID or post-COVID saga that we find ourselves in. And it's also changing. And so what may be the law or the complex law 2 months ago is now a new complex law, today. And we have to be able to stay on top of that, be able to talk about it well, and be able to communicate it in a way that the client understands. So, it's so I'm a relatively young guy. I'm about 10 years out of high school, and a few years out of law school. And I'm told that there have been a lot of changes in the workplace since the 90s, since the early 2000s, since the 2010s, I guess, if that's what we're calling it, and then the 2020s. There have been a lot of changes. For example, I have a software on my phone that allows me to dictate a letter to my legal assistant. She then types it up, and then it goes straight to her email after I dictate it, types it up, and then she sends it over to my email. That is incredibly efficient, and I can do that on the way home while I'm driving. So that, one, puts a better service to the client because I can work more efficiently and we get a streamlined process. But about 20 years ago, or even 5, maybe 10 years ago, they used to do these dictations, but they would have little cassette tapes, and they'd talk and they'd say, "Oh, we're gonna dictate a letter, and hello client," and then you have to rewind, and it makes that screechy noise, and then oh, oops, sorry, we're gonna start on this file, and then you have to do that, and then you just go and put the physical cassette tape to your legal assistant. And so the dictation aspect has it's become incredibly more efficient, more streamlined, and that falls under the larger umbrella of technology. So we bill, generally speaking, if we're not billing like a flat fee or a retainer, we bill by the hour. So the billable hour is what attorneys are kind of known for. Well, hopefully they're known for helping people, but maybe number 2 or 3 down the line is the billable hour, and that's a very real thing. So I need to keep track of my life while I'm working in increments of 0.1, which is about every 6 minutes. And so talking to somebody. I've been on this call for say a point three. Being able to track that is how we bring in dollars and how we bring in money. And so we have billing software now that, again, everything's an app nowadays. I can bill from my phone. I can dictate into my phone, telephonic conference with client discussing paid leave laws under the CARES Act. Point six, right? If I had and that's just a fancy way of saying talk to the client on the phone about vacation, and that's it. And so, but the idea that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you had to take a pen, write down point two, and then you took this paper and you brought it over to your legal assistant or your billing secretary. You had to walk somewhere to do that. It was incredibly inefficient, and it wasted your time, wasted the firm's time. And so now we have algorithms and software, which goes back to the pre-calc, right? Thanks, Ms. Fernandez, for some engineer, building this software that we use. We can now bill more efficiently. We can dictate letters more efficiently. We can do legal research more efficiently. I don't have to go down to a law library, some law school in Raleigh or Chapel Hill, and do legal research in person. I can pull up a software that we use called Westlaw that has just about every law imaginable, every treatise, every case that's been published or unpublished in all across the country, and actually most parts of the world now. They have a really good software that we can use to conduct our legal research. And so legal research, billing, dictation, all under that large umbrella of technology. And it continues to change, and it continues to grow, just like the law and how complex that is.